Hey guys, this is Nick bringing you a slight update to my FA Metalfoes deck profile. It's been a couple of weeks since my last upload on the channel. I do want to apologize for that. I've been a little busy with some personal things that I've had going on in my life. I also got a new job, which is pretty cool, so I've been kind of focusing on that. But I wanted to bring you guys a update to the deck because I have been still testing it and playing with it, and I did make a few changes with the main, the extra, as well as the side. We decided to increase the deck count from 42 cards to 44 cards, and I'll explain why I decided to do that during the profile. They're all just minor changes. It's not like the whole deck is different from what the previous version was. So this profile will be a little bit quicker than usual. If you want to see a more in-depth profile, then feel free to check out my most recent video on the profile. But I'll be sure to point out what changed in this video, obviously. But let's go ahead and start flying right through it. I also do want to point out that I've been working with a close friend of mine on a Egyptian god Numeron deck that me and him are putting together. And it's something that I'll be bringing to the channel within the next week or so. So we'll have some new content on the channel that's not FA Metalfoes related, which will be nice. So we'll get some variety in here. And once we do that deck profile, maybe we can also do a live duel video as well for the channel between FA Metalfoes going against Egyptian god Numeron, which should be pretty cool since both decks are considered rogue to casual. However, both of those decks do have kind of an interesting ceiling and can actually make some pretty cool boards, contrary to popular belief. So, like I said, stay tuned for that. That should be coming on the channel within the next week or so, and then I'll try and get a live duel video up soon after that. But either way, let's dive into this FA Metalfoes version of the deck that I have now, and we'll start going over some of the changes that I made. And yeah, so we'll start with the main deck, obviously. We'll start with the monsters. We're going to be running triple copies of FA Auto Navigator. Obviously, you already know if you're playing FAs, you play 3 of this. She searches her field spells when she's summoned. She can also special summon herself by targeting an FA monster whose level's higher than its original, and then her level becomes the amount reduced. So, like, she searches on summon, she modulates levels, she's your main tuner of the strategy. You play 3 of her no matter what. Then we are on 2 copies of FA Hang On Mach. Hang On Mach is the second best FA main deck monster. He gains 300 attack times his level. Every time an FA spell or trap's activated, he gains a level that's not once per turn. And then while he's level 7 or higher, any card sent from your opponent to your opponent's graveyard will be banished instead. So he's like a macrocosmos once he gets to level 7 or higher. And on top of that, he is also unaffected by the activated effects of an opponent's monster whose level is lower than his. So that's pretty cool. Hang On Mach is nice just to play it too. Then we're on the 1 FA Dark Dragster. Pretty self-explanatory. He special summons himself while you control a level 7 or higher FA. He can also reduce his level by 3 to target any card in the field and destroy it. And then he too gains 300 attack times his level. And each time an FA spell trap is activated, he gains a level as well. So that's it for the FA main deck monsters. Now we're moving into the Metalfoes monsters. We're playing 2 copies of Bismagear, 2 copies of Steelen, and 2 copies of Silverd. Pretty much what we do with the Metalfoes monsters is we use their pendulum effects to pop the FA field spells to generate insane amounts of advantage, because you're going to get searches off the Metalfoes effect and then a search off the FA field spell when they're destroyed. So you go like +2 on the exchange, and it gives you so much consistency and level modulation to be able to make some really cool synchro plays and whatnot. Bismagear is the 8th scale, so it's your high scale, along with Steelen being your high scale as well. Bismagear does have a monster effect, unlike Silverd or Steelen, because they're vanillas. What she does is, if she's on field and she's destroyed by battle or card effects during the end phase of the turn, you get to add a Metalfoes monster from deck to hand. You have Silverd here, who is your low scale, being a 1, and then all of them share the exact same pendulum effect, which is nice. Then we're playing the 1 copy of Melcaster, which is our level 7 main deck Metalfoes monster. Again, she shares the exact same pendulum effect as all the other ones, and she's also your low scale as well, being a 1. And her monster effect is like the inverted version of Bismagear. When Melcaster is destroyed by battle or card effect, she can actually add a Metalfoes monster that's face up in your extra deck to your hand. However, if you do that, you cannot activate a card in the Pendulum scale with that name for the rest of the turn. That's not even a bad drawback though, but one copy of Melcaster is nice to have. And then we're also on the one copy of Metalfoes Vanisher. Vanisher's my favorite Metalfoes main deck monster. He special summons himself from the hand by popping 2 cards on your field, including a Metalfoes card. And then if he's special summoned by a Metalfoes effect, including his own, he can target a monster the opponent controls or that they have in their grave and banish it. So Vanisher is really cool for that. Then we are playing 3 copies of Magician Souls. I do want to apologize for anyone that is trying to play this deck and can't afford Souls, because Souls right now is extremely expensive. I'm going to be honest, I thought Souls would have gotten a reprint in King's Court, and it didn't. And to be honest, I really don't know why. I feel like they kind of missed an opportunity there with that. But there is no replacement for Souls. No matter, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. Souls is an insane card, basically functioning as a consistency booster and a pseudo extender. There isn't any other card that even comes close to what Souls offers to this deck. Now, if you did want to play this deck, but you can't afford Souls, I'm sorry to say, you can play the deck, but your ceiling as well as your resiliency to disruption is going to severely be hindered, because I can't tell you how many times Magician Souls allows me to play through disruptions. It's really, really insane. Being able to give you draw power to help dig into deeper to your deck to dig for the cards you're looking for, and then also just being a free body on board without consuming a normal summon. You know, it baits out disruptions, it baits out hand traps, and then you're already playing an obscure deck. FAs, not many people know what they do. The same thing with Metalfoes. I mean, maybe Metalfoes is more popular than FA. More people know what Metalfoes do than FAs, but still, you're playing them together in the same deck. So people kind of get thrown off and confused. They don't know how to interact with the strategy, or what points are the choke points. And then next thing you know, you're summoning out a Magician Souls. The opponent is getting worried because now they're like, what is he doing? And they're hand trapping this thing or shotgunning, their Ash Blossoms or their Imperms. And to be honest with you, that's fine, because most of the time that I put Souls on board, it's just to bait and negate. And if they take the bait, it's good for me, because then I can go full combo. So 3 copies of Souls. Then you are on 1 copy of Chronograph Sorcerer, which is the target that I dump with Souls. Chronograph Sorcerer does function as a high scale if you needed one. However, I wouldn't advise you scale this card at all. If anything, I would recommend keeping it in your hand if you do draw it, because it's not necessarily a brick. His monster effect synergizes really well with what the Metalfoes Pendulum effects do, and that's pop cards. So if a card I control is destroyed, he can special summon himself from my hand, and if he does that, he can special summon another monster from my hand as well, in addition to himself. So that's a pretty cool effect to use, and it's pretty hard for your opponent to stop, because it activates in the hand and not on field. So assuming you're going first, there isn't really many hand traps that can interact with that, which is nice. But just the 1 copy is all you need. Then we're playing the 1 copy of Deskbot 1, because we are playing the Halka-Fibrax Aurorodon combo. So Deskbot 1 is our tuner for that. And then we're also playing the Mecha Phantom Beast Coltwing in the main deck as well, again to facilitate the Crystron Halka-Fibrax Mecha Phantom Beast Aurorodon combo. Coltwing is a brick, and let me kind of explain to you now why I decided to up the main deck count. I kept drawing into Coltwing a lot, and it was pretty upsetting. I'm not going to lie. Don't get me wrong, Coltwing isn't always a brick if I draw it, because I do play Pendulums, so I can set up a pen scale and still Pendulum summon the Coltwing. However, that doesn't mean that every time I draw Coltwing, I have access to a scale. Sometimes that's the case, and that's fine, but that's not all the time. So there are times when I do draw Coltwing, and I don't have access to a pen scale, and it just sucks so bad. And I don't know what it is, if I'm just like the unluckiest person in the world, but there was a lot of games and a lot of testing that I did where I was constantly drawing this damn card, and it was just really pissing me off. So I decided to up the deck count to 44 cards to try and help mitigate me seeing this thing as much in my hand as possible. yeah, so that's why I decided to increase the deck count. We are still playing the Droll and Lockbirds as their hand trap of choice. However, we're no longer playing 3 copies in the main deck. We're only main decking 2 copies and then side decking the third. The reason for that is because I've noticed some slight changes with the format moving forward. And Droll, even though it is a really great hand trap that will usually end people's turns, it's not good against every matchup. So at least, you know, if I'm going first, you know, obviously I don't know what the opponent's playing, but if Droll is a effective hand trap against them, then I'll side in the third one. But if it's not an effective hand trap against them, then at least I don't have to worry about drawing into 2 more copies if I happen to see one. You know what I mean? So I'm just playing 2 of it for now. It is still technically searchable because I am playing Where Arf Thou in this strategy. So playing it at 2 in the main, it hasn't given me any trouble. But now, allow me to introduce you a new addition to the main deck, and that is 3 copies of Psy-Frame Gamma, a brand new hand trap we decided to run in the strategy. Gamma is pretty self-explanatory, and then we're playing the Psy-Frame Driver as well. Pretty much as long as I control no monsters, I can negate the activation of an opponent's monster effect, and if I do, I can destroy that card. So it's really, really cool. I'm going to be totally honest, I should have been playing this card from the get-go. I kind of undervalued how amazing of a hand trap Gamma actually is, and ever since I started playing it, I haven't regretted it whatsoever. Gamma is just a really, really nice hand trap. If I lose the dice roll and the opponent goes first, if I Gamma the right card, depending on what my matchup is, it usually just ends their turn most of the time, because Gamma is a really difficult hand trap to play through. Or if I'm going first, or second, it doesn't really matter. As long as I control no monsters, Gamma's always live. So what's funny is that, again, something that I mentioned earlier is people don't necessarily know how this deck functions, and they don't really know how to deal with it while I'm comboing off. So what's interesting is that if I open up a Pendulum Scale and an FA Field Spell, I can use the Pen Scale to pop the Field Spell, and most of the time the opponent ends up shotgunning their hand traps, and I can chain in response with Psy-Frame Gamma and like totally punish them for using the hand trap. And then in addition to that, I can actually go into a Psy-Frame Lord Omega and then rip another card out of their hand for free before committing to my full combo, which is nice. So Gamma in that case kind of functions as a like 3 copies of Called by the Grave, which is cool since Called by the Grave is limited. So playing Gamma for that reason is also really smart, you know, because there are points in this combo that the opponent will want to try and like Droll and Lockbird you or Ash you, and if I have Gamma in hand, it just like really, really screws them up. So yeah, so that's what we're playing now in the main deck for our monster count. Let's move into the spell cards here. Moving on to the spells. We are still playing 2 copies of UA Hyper Stadium. Pretty quick, since most of you guys who follow the channel should know what this does. When you activate it, it lets you add an FA monster from deck to hand, and then it gives you a double summon for an FA monster in addition to your normal summoner set this turn. So it's pretty nice. You only play 2 of it because it's a hard once per turn on activation. So if you draw multiples, the other copies you have in your hand are kind of bricky, and then it doesn't give your FA monsters levels during the main phase, and it also does not float on destruction. So because of that, I don't want to max out on it. However, my deck does search a lot, so I can always search this whenever I need to see it. So it's not a problem playing it at 2. Then we're on the 1 copy of FA Circuit Grand Prix. Circuit Grand Prix gives your FA monsters 2 levels during the battle phase. Then if they destroy a monster by battle, I get to draw a card. And then if Circuit Grand Prix gets destroyed by a card effect, it lets me add an FA card from the deck to my hand, except a copy of itself. And then we're on 2 copies of Off-Road Grand Prix. Off-Road Grand Prix is really, really nice. It gives your FA monsters 2 levels during the main phase. And then if an FA monster I control is destroyed by battle, I can discard a random card out of the opponent's hand. That doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's pretty funny. And then also it has the same graveyard effect as Circuit Grand Prix, where when off-road is destroyed by a card effect, lets me search for an FA monster from deck to hand. Or not even a monster, excuse me, an FA card. So that's even a better search. And then for the last field spell, we are playing 3 copies of FA City Grand Prix, the best field spell in my opinion. It gives your FA monsters targeting protection, and then it grants them 2 levels during the main phase and battle phase, and also floats on destruction, just like Off-Road and Circuit Grand Prix do, which is really nice. Moving into our quick play spells, we're playing 2 copies of FA Test Run. Test Run, you can target an FA on field, change its battle position to then destroy a card on the field. The destruction doesn't target, so it's a non-target destruction, which is nice. So think of it like a Zodiac Trident, if Trident didn't target, I guess. And then it does have a grave effect where you can banish it from the graveyard to target a card you control and destroy it, to special summon an FA monster from your deck. So the graveyard effect is kind of like a Zodiac Barrage, if you had to kind of compare it to something. So still a great card nonetheless. However, both effects are hard once per turns, so that's why I'm only playing 2 copies of it, because if you open multiples, they do tend to brick. Then we're on the 1 copy of FA Pit Stop. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with this card. I hate the on-field effect, but I love the graveyard effect, and that's why I'm playing it. It's for the grave effect usually. The on-field effect lets you target an FA, reduces level by 2, and then you draw a card. That's not that great, in my opinion. What is great, though, is the graveyard effect. Being able to banish this card from your grave to target an FA in your graveyard and special summon it is really nice. Having an in-archetype monster reborn for the theme is really cool. Then we're playing the 1 copy of Where Arf Thou. This is just like a consistency booster, being able to let you search for your level 1 monsters from your deck to your hand if you control a level 1 monster already. We play a lot of level 1s, cards like Bismagear, Auto Navigator, Souls, Droll, Deskbot 1. All those cards are really cool level 1s, and if you open any one of those cards, you have the ability to search any of your other level 1s using Where Arf Thou. I was previously playing 2 copies of this, however I cut it down to 1, and that's so I could make space for 1 copy of Emergency Teleport, which we are now playing in the main deck. To be honest with you, I don't really know why I wasn't playing this before. I mean, all the Metalfoes are already Psychic monsters anyway, so you could use E-Telly to special summon like any Metalfoes you want from deck, which is cool. But also, the main reason why we're playing it now is because now we're playing the Psy-Frame Gamma in our main deck, and E-Telly is just another way to get to Gamma, which is another tuner, which is nice, just in case like the Auto Navigator we summoned gets hit with a hand trap and we lose out on the tuner that we needed. If we have E-Telly, we can go into another tuner like Gamma and still try and make combo into Hulk, which is nice. So 1 Emergency Teleport is cool. Then moving into the Metalfoes spells and traps, we are playing the 1 Metalfoes Fusion. Again, not much to explain here, it's just a generic fusion spell, allowing you to fuse into Metalfoes Fusions using materials from the hand or field. However, this card does have a nice grave effect where you can shuffle it back into the deck from the graveyard to draw a card, which is really nice. Then you're playing Parametalfoes Fusion. Again, generic fusion spell for Metalfoes Fusions, letting you use materials from your hand or field. However, you also have the added benefit of using materials that are face up in your extra deck, which is cool. And then we are playing 2 copies of Metalfoes Counter. This card's nice because if a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon a Metalfoes monster straight out of your deck. And then the grave effect is you can banish this card from the graveyard to target a Metalfoes Pendulum monster that's face up in your extra deck and add it to hand. And then for the last card in the main deck, we are on the 1 copy of Metalfoes Combination. We don't really use this card's on-field effects. What we mainly use this card for is the grave effect, where when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, we get to add a Metalfoes monster from deck to hand. It's really nice to, in tandem with Magician Souls, being able to use Souls to send this to grave to draw a card, and then because Combination was sent from the field to the graveyard, we'll get to search a card as well, which is pretty cool. But that's it for the main deck, guys. It's 44 cards now. I've been testing it for a little bit. And so far I'm pretty happy with it. It's been pretty consistent, and I like the addition of Gamma in the main deck, as well as upping the count to 44 cards to help minimize drawing into the bricks like the Driver or the Coltwing that you're now playing. But that's it for the main deck. Like I said, the only real change is just increasing the deck count to 44 and then adding the Gammas and the E-Telly to the mix. Let's go ahead and jump into the extra, and we'll talk a little bit about what changed in the extra. We'll start off with the Metalfoes Fusions. These remain the same. Alkahest and Mithrilium are my targets, or my choices that I'm playing. Simply put, because I feel that they're the best Metalfoes Fusions that the archetype has to offer. Alkahest can quick effect target an effect monster the opponent controls and equip it to himself, which is nice. So it's kind of like a quick effect like Snatch Steal during their turn. It's a really nice form of disruption. It doesn't like negate or destroy, it just takes the body, and then like your opponent now has to deal with the Alkahest if they want to get their card back, which is kind of funny. Then you have Mithrilium, which is really cool, really great stats for a level 6 fusion. She can bounce cards on the field back to the hand. She can also recycle your Metalfoes spells and traps in the graveyard back into the deck. And then she also floats when she leaves the field by any means. Even if they kaiju her, she can special summon a Metalfoes Pendulum monster from your graveyard or face up from the extra deck, which is really cool. So those are the two fusions I'm running. Then we're playing the one Crystron Quandax. To be honest, we're just playing him because he's a level 4 Synchro Tuner. Outside of that, there's really no reason, or other reason. We are on the one copy of Garden Rose Flora. Can't understate how amazing this card is in this deck. Her effects are really unique, but they work so well with how FAs and Metalfoes play. She can target field spells and blow them up, and when she does, she special summons a token. So she can target my FA field spells, destroy them. I get a free token, and then because the field spell is destroyed, I get a search off the field spell, which is cool. And then she can also synchro summon during the opponent's turn as a quick effect, using herself as material. Then we are playing the one copy of Dawn Dragster. Again, you're playing FAs, so you want to play the FA boss monster. Dawn Dragster is really great. It's a spell trap negate, it does piercing damage, it gains attack times its level, and it gains a level every time an FA effect is used, which is nice. Then you're on the one copy of Black Rose Dragon, finally upgraded to a secret rare from the tin. Looks really, really great. Black Rose is just a really easy level 7 generic synchro to go into, nukes the board. Again, if you have field spells out, and Black Rose uses the effect to nuke the field, your field spells get destroyed and they float. So really cool interaction there. Then we're playing the one copy of Cyber's Quantum Dragon. Quantum Dragon, really awesome form of removal. It's non-target, non-destruction. It just, anything it battles, it bounces back to hand. This can even deal with a Dragoon, assuming you baited Dragoon's negate earlier in the turn. Also, if you control a Link monster, Quantum Dragon grants targeting protection to all monsters you control. And also, your opponent can only battle into the Quantum Dragon if they're going to attack, assuming you control a Link as well. So Quantum is a really nice synchro monster that I feel is a little underutilized. There's a lot of decks that I think could be playing this card, but just aren't, because they probably don't know it exists. But now moving into the changes that we made with the extra deck, we are now playing the one copy of Psy-Frame Lord Zeta. And the reason for this is, we can quick synchro using Garden Rose Flora on the opponent's turn, using herself and the token that she summons by her own effect, because the token she puts out is a level 2, so 5 and 2 make 7. So before, we could usually go into like a Black Rose Dragon or a Quantum Dragon on the opponent's turn, and don't get me wrong, both of these cards are cool, but Zeta provides a really unique form of disruption, being able to target a special summon monster the opponent has in attack mode, and banish both that card and the Zeta until my next standby phase. So that's a really, really interesting form of disruption that the Zeta provides, and I thought it warranted a slot in the extra deck because of it, since I'm able to make level 7 synchros pretty easily and pretty consistently. The card that I took out in place of Zeta was Virtual World Shenshen, and even though Shenshen is a really good card, I just feel that it was kind of redundant to play in the extra because we play Hang on Mach in our main deck, which is already like a better version of Shenshen anyway, or at least an easier version to put on board, since all it requires is your normal summon. But yeah, so we cut the Shen for the Zeta, and so far I haven't regretted that choice. But let's move into the rest of the extra deck. The next change is now we are running one copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. This is a really cool generic level 8 Synchro. The card that I took out in place of this was my High Speed Roid Kite Drake. The reason why I cut Kite Drake, even though Kite Drake is really cool, is because of the restriction that Kite Drake has, needing a Wind Machine Tuner specifically as material to be summoned. There are times, depending on the game state, where that's not always possible, and Kite Drake wound up being a card that I just sometimes couldn't go into if I didn't have access to like an auto nav specifically. And that was kind of bad, because Kite Drake, even though it has a really good effect, having a card like that that's not easy to summon, to me just kind of seems redundant. Like, what's the point of playing a card like that if you can't always make it easily? So I decided to cut it, and we're running the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi just as a more generic, easily accessible level 8 Synchro. And the effects are pretty nice that it has, being able to banish monsters on field when an effect is used. That's non-targeting, so this can even clear a Dragoon as well, assuming you baited the negate. And so far I don't regret my choice. I think Draco Berserker of the Tenyi definitely deserves a spot in this extra deck. And then we're still on the Savage Dragon, the Omega, and these round off my level 8 Synchros. And then we're playing the 1 Motorhome Transport, and then we are also playing the 1 Ruddy Rose Dragon. Ruddy Rose stays putting in work, man. There's so many decks in this format that rely on their graveyard as a resource, and Ruddy Rose just banishes both players' graves entirely and just fucks all that up, for lack of a better word. So Ruddy Rose is really cool, and also another underutilized synchro that I think people are sleeping on. But then for the last 2 cards in the extra deck, we're on the Crystron Halqifibrax and the Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon for the Hulk Auroradon synchro token spam combo that everyone should be familiar with. But that's it for the extra deck, guys. Let me know what you think of the changes. Like I said, the new additions to the extra are the Psy-Frame Zeta and the Draco Berserker. Both cards I feel are really cool, and in my opinion are better replacements for the Shen and the Kite Drake, respectively. And then let's move into the side deck, because that's the last area that I actually made changes to. And actually the most interesting change that I made was in the side. We are playing the 3rd copy of Droll in the side, and again, I had explained this earlier. While Droll still is a really great hand trap, it is not great against every strategy, so I'm only main decking 2, and I'm side decking the 3rd. If I'm playing against a deck where Droll is impactful, I'll side in the 3rd copy. If I'm playing against a deck where Droll's not impactful, then I'll side out the 2 in the main, and we'll side in other cards. But so yeah, 1 copy of Droll in the side, and then this is where things get kind of interesting. We're playing the 3rd Hang-On Mach and the FA Whip Crosser in our side deck. So let me explain why I'm playing these cards here. Obviously, we're playing a combo-focused deck. So usually we want to go first. If we win the dice roll, that's amazing. And we'll try and set up a pretty insane board of, anywhere from 3 to 6 disruptions, depending on our hand. That's really cool, right? The problem with that is, in games 2 or 3, our opponent knows what we're playing now. So it's a lot easier for them to side deck stuff to hurt what we're trying to do. And since we're playing a combo deck, the most common things to side it against the combo strategy would be like Dark Ruler No More, Nibiru, Gamma, things like that, or Drolls, for example. All those cards hurt. Any deck, obviously, like not just mine specifically, but Nib, Gamma, all those cards are designed to really like hurt other strategies. And I was thinking, what if in games 2 or 3, I try to blindside my opponent and side in more main deck FA names? That way I can play more of a FA control variant and play like this more slower paced, like grindy control aspect of the deck. And that's not so combo focused. That way I'm not losing to cards like Nibiru or Gamma or Droll and things of that nature. Because your opponent's not going to expect that. Like if you played combo, going first, well in game 2 they're going to assume you're still playing combo. So when they side in all their cards to combat that, Well, now you can slide in more main deck FA names and play this like slower, grindy, like control variant using the FA main deck monsters, since Hang On Mach is already like a walking floodgate in addition to Whipcrosser. And speaking of, let me kind of explain what Whipcrosser does, because we haven't actually talked about him. Just like Hang On Mach, he gains 300 attack times his level. He also gains a level every time an FA spell trap or spell trap effect is used. That's not once per turn. And then your opponent has to pay 300 life points to activate the effect of a monster whose level or rank is lower than his. And then, if Whipcrosser's level 7 or higher, the opponent cannot discard or send cards from their hand to the graveyard to activate a card effect. That is really, really cool, because what that pretty much means is they can no longer hand trap you, since most of the hand traps in the game require them to discard themselves. So cards like Ash, Veiler, Ghost Bell, DD Crow, none of those cards can be used now, as long as Whipcrosser's level 7 or higher, because they cannot discard or send cards from the hand to the grave to activate an effect. So it shuts off all hand traps. It even stops cards like Forbidden Droplet, since Droplet has to send cards from the hand most of the time to activate, so they can no longer Forbidden Droplet you under FA Whipcrosser. Things like Eldritch can no longer work as well, I should say, because Eldritch's hand effect, where he can discard himself in a spell trap to target something and send it to grave, can't do that either, because that's discarding, to activate an effect. There's probably a bunch of other cards in the game that I'm not thinking of at the moment that send themselves to the grave or discard as costs or discard a card to do something. Basically, as long as Whipcrosser's level 7 or higher, you just can't do that. So it works as a really, really nice floodgate in addition to the Hang On Mach. And it's just a little bit of spice that I was trying to test out and try to mind game the opponent going into like games 2 or 3 and play like a more grindier, slower, control-focused version of the deck instead of relying on the combo. So something I've been testing out, and it's worked out pretty well so far. But let me know what you guys think about it. Outside of that, though, the rest of the side deck still remains the same. We're still on triple copies of Godarla, Kaiju, the 1 copy of the Wind Pegasus at Ignister. We're still playing 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More, because again, you don't want to lose to a combo deck going second. And then we're on the double copies of Twin Twisters, 1 Duster, 1 Raigeki, and the 1 Red Reboot. But that about sums it up for the deck, guys. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I feel like some of the changes I made are pretty cool, or for the better. And so far in testing, the deck's been working out pretty well. But also stay tuned for that upcoming Numeron Egyptian God deck. I should have that for you guys within the next week or so. And then maybe we can also get a live duel video between FA Metalfoes and Numeron Egyptian Gods as well. But feel free to like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll do what I can to answer them. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.